morning. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann. In the morning, where talk is real, truth is in the talk, and there is power in truth. And we believe that power talks and the truth will set you free. Good morning, Melody.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
She came on this morning, and we were talking before the show. I have to tell on you. You know I do.
Oh, no.
And she said, we got to change our theme song, because she woke up in the wee hours of the morning humming the theme song, and she couldn't get it out of her head, and she was humming the theme song, and I just laughed. I told her God was talking to her. Anyway.
Well, I'd like to know how many listeners out there go through the day humming that song.
Oh, that would be interesting. 717-300-1218. They probably wish we just shut up. 717-300-1218. Good morning. Does that stick in your head? Good morning.
Good morning. So,
let's get on with the news. Yeah. And then she tap danced her way into the living room, she said. Okay.
Telling on me.
I am telling on you. You can tell on me if I ever do anything.
I wouldn't, though.
Oh, I think you would. I think you would.
Maybe.
Well, you were right. You were right about the YouTube shooter. More has come out, and it was not a domestic dispute. Surprise, surprise. She was angry with YouTube. She was Iranian descent, and she went in with her handgun. But I got a big kick out of Tucker Carlson covering it last night, because they're not covering. The ones that always want gun control, they're not covering because it doesn't fit their narrative. He says the media outlets aren't reaching out on these conclusions because of what she did. Why not? Because there's no obvious way to use this shooting to advance the objectives of the Democrat Party, which is, to more gun control or confiscation. He says, so the media will stop talking about it because they are corrupt. And then he was kind of laughing about Nicole Wallace on MSNBC because she's doing the news, and they're talking a little bit about that. And somebody opens a pop can, and she thought it was a gunshot. It's like, woman, get a grip. Talk about living on the edge. Anyway, she couldn't tell a gunshot from a pop can opening. There is totally a difference, but I guess she hasn't heard too many guns shoot.
That is very true. But it is interesting that this woman was Iranian descent. There was also, she was interviewed by the police. So again, another one slips through the cracks. But they're certainly not going to mention, or are they really setting it up so they will pinpoint slipping through the cracks, so therefore they can push more red flag states and to pull the weapons. Yeah.
All the murders and shootings that go on in Chicago, they don't talk about those either.
They don't talk about those either.
But she was female, so she doesn't fit the narrative. And, of course, she was Iranian descent, so that's not – they don't want to talk about that. And she was an exercise nut. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to exercise. I'm just too lazy. I think you should exercise. And not
at 2:30 in the morning.
Well, no, you're too busy tap dancing at that time. But anyway, you were absolutely correct. I had not seen that breaking news when we came on, so thank you for paying attention.
Yes.
Are you there?
Yes, I am. I am. I didn't know you were talking to me. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I was talking to you. Of course I was talking.
Well, you're quite welcome. So
yes.
It's one of those days. Hey, yesterday on the program we came across, we're going to talk a little bit about tariffs and see where we're leading on that, but we're trying to, maybe get some little more details out of the Republican Congressman Alexander X. Mooney of West Virginia, the 2nd District. He introduced a bill in the House that would basically would return the United States to the gold standard. It's House Resolution 5404, and simply put, would define the dollar as a fixed weight of gold. And it's been referred to the House Financial Services Committee. There have been no hearings scheduled, though, and we did contact the office of the congressmen to find out more details. However, they told us that their phone lines were down and that we had to email.
But that's a phone line too.
I know. So we did. We emailed, and we did contact his office to see if to see if there was a reason, the timing, if they believe there will be any public hearings, if there will be any public hearings, and so forth. But it is real interesting. We did send it out on a blog, so the listeners can go to the website, dgscoins.com, sign up at the newsletter section, and we'll probably resend this again here in the next couple of days.
Tell me his name again, Alexander
Mooney, Mooney, of West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's a Republican senator or a representative?
He's a congressman. Republican congressman, Alexander X of the 2nd District.
All right. That's very interesting. There are these rumors that there's going to be a crash and that the stock market's looking like there's going to be a crash. Of course, it recuperated again, but it just gets a little bit more each time. And I think when something like that happens, that's when they'll get wise and go back to the gold standard. But I'm not sure how that'll fix everything. It won't immediately, for sure, but it needs to be done. I'm not saying that. I know it needs to be done, but I think it'll all be new currency or something. I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to default on the currency, on the debt, before you can introduce any other type of, gold back system. So it's, but it was interesting because under the Congress fine, they talk about the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation objective. The dollar loses half of its purchasing power every generation. He talked about the Americans' families need long-term price stability to meet their household spending. The Federal Reserve policy of long-term inflation has made American manufacturing uncompetitive. It raises the cost of manufactured goods by more than 40% since 2000, compared to less than 20% in Germany and France. Between 2000 and 2010, United States manufacturing employment shrunk by 1/3 after holding steady for 30 years of nearly 20 million jobs. So it's an interesting blog, and we're going to share this with you. I can continue a little bit more. Let's see, under the gold standard, the United States economy grew at an annual average of 4%, 1/3 larger than the growth rate since then and twice the level, since 2000. The Federal Reserve's trickle-down policy of expanding the money supply with no demand for it has enriched the owners of the financial assets, have endangered the jobs, wages, and savings of blue-collar workers. And he goes on, there's a step 2, it defines the dollar in terms of gold, and so it's interesting, and I think the timing. We'll see if anything happens to it. We'll see if it actually gets any hearings, and I see if it makes it to the House or the Senate floors for the vote before the current session of Congress expires at the end of the year. So hey, depending on what happens, come fall, or to the markets and to our dollar. I mean, I really do believe we're very close. I believe of something. Now, does it mean it's going to be the end and they're actually going to usher in a gold-backed currency by the end of the year or January 1st of next year? Well, we don't. I mean, we know Trump during the campaign said that he's willing to renegotiate the bonds, treasury bonds. He understands and believes about a gold-backed currency, but he's got Larry.
He was speaking for it. He was when he was campaigning. He mentioned it a couple of times.
But when you have Larry Kudlow in there, Kudlow wants everybody to sell gold, so there's a big conflict there. So, highly unlikely, unless Kudlow gets fired before January of next year.
I thought of you last night when I watched Lou Dobbs, and he was talking about something that Kudlow had said about about we're not in a trade war. Well, then Lou Dobbs started laughing. He wasn't interviewing him. He was talking with someone else and talking about, and they were showing snippets of what Kudlow had been saying, and Lou Dobbs just cracking up. He goes, how do you define a trade war then? Because, they're batting back and forth here with China right now, and it's, Kudlow said, we're not in a trade war.
Well, I'm really not sure. Again, as I mentioned, I'm really not sure of the impacts on to either country. I don't know. I don't think $50 billion, considering, the amount of the deficit. In fact, there was a report out today. I'll try to pull it up during the break, where again our trade deficit has skyrocketed. So, $50 billion.
I think it's not a matter of the money; it's the principle. I think that China's upset about it. And the article that I had here, if I can pull it out here in a big hurry, was talking about. Oh, where is that? Well, I don't have it. It's here somewhere. Maybe it's on the bottom. No, that's not it. But they were talking about what China was going to hit back with. I'm just kind of lost it here. Anyway, it was. Oh, I bet it's stuck to that one.
I do.
This is coming from Newsmax, and it was Todd Beeman that wrote it. But it says the Navarro on tariffs, and this is Peter Navarro. He's the White House advisor, and he was talking about how they're going to stand back. They're going to stand behind and back up the U.S. workers and farmers. And his final statement on this is he says, where is it? He says, what we have here is a situation where they have been basically punching us in the belly, in the face for years. All we're doing now is self-defense, defending ourselves. And the way they expect us to react is to punch us more and more, basically try to hit American farmers most directly. He says, I don't think the American people are going to respond very well to those kind of threats. They're simply not doing that, and Donald Trump is standing up for the American people. In other words, he's going to stand there. He's not going to let them continue in these trade issues to continually beat up the American workers and farmers. And he says, we will have the backs of American farmers. And, you'll see that there are some in the agricultural wing that we are all about the NAFTA and the CAFTA and the GATT. But there are others, and that is mostly the big boys. The individual independent farmers are the ones that have really, really been hurt. And so anyway, it remains to be seen what's going to happen, but they are trying to fight back. And so I would call it a little bit of a war. But, when they're punishing with a tariff, it's like we had said a couple of weeks ago, it's not a tariff, it's a sanction. But we'll just see. China's hitting back.
Yeah, but what happens when you have, I hear about there's backroom discussions and negotiations and so forth. Well, I don't know how that really helps, But you talk about the soybean trade, America's $14 billion soybean trade with China, that is at risk. So how is the government going to support the farmers? By more subsidies, by giving them more subsidies and so forth to keep them from being hurt? You also have, it's just not soybean trade, you have beef, cotton, corn, and wheat are also among the U.S. products that are targeted.
And pork. We're going into, pork may not be one targeted. We're going into a break. We're going into a break. Your calls are welcome at 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. And Melody Beth Ann will be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we have returned. You're listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann. In the morning, we're going to go to the phone lines. Joe in Arkansas. Joe, good morning. We have sunshine
good
today,
morning.
Joe, and it's going to be warm.
Yeah,
and then
nice.
snow
It's supposed
tomorrow.
to be and then get nasty again tomorrow. Yep.
Snow tomorrow, I tell you. Sun today, snow tomorrow.
Yep. Still early spring.
It is.
Yesterday I did a little sign painting job for a man that's got a sales company, and he showed me an interesting item that he's got, and that's kind of a bin, a waste basket bin that you can use to use your, those plastic bags that you get at the grocery store. This makes it really handy to use those to put your trash in, and then, so that you can reuse those things, to put your trash in and then tie them up and put them in the garbage. And so anyway, it's a real good idea, real handy little item, very well designed and made in the USA. And he told me that he was trying to sell this thing to Walmart. He was trying to supply this thing to Walmart, but they refused to pay him a high enough price to keep on manufacturing this thing in the United States. They offered him a very low price for it, and so if he was going to sell this thing to Walmart, he would have to have it manufactured in China. And I've heard from Walmart suppliers over and over and over. You get to talk to quite a few Walmart suppliers up here in Northwest Arkansas, where Walmart headquarters is, that Walmart will not pay their suppliers enough to manufacture their stuff in the United States, but it forces them, if they want to sell to Walmart, it forces them to move their manufacturing to China. And I think most likely Walmart, being a globalist corporation that does this kind of thing, is in league with a whole bunch of globalist corporations and banks that want to force America to become more and more economically dependent on China. And the whole idea that, this China trade should be so important to us seems to me ridiculous because, from my memory, we didn't have any significant trade with China at all until the 1990s. And before that, we got along just fine, buying and selling just about nothing with China. And everything that we now get from China, we made here or grew here or supplied to ourselves, produced here, and we were doing better than we are now when we did that. So why people think suddenly this China trade is all important to us, is just ridiculous to me. As far as the farmers go, this seems to be another symptom of globalism, that what the American government should do is it should guarantee the American farmer the advantage in the American market, but instead what we're doing is we're importing all kinds of food from other countries, and then it's supposed to be the job of our country, our government, to find our farmers markets in other countries, which is ridiculous. We should have some tariffs on the imported foods from other countries, so the American farmer has the advantage in the American market, and that's what the government should do for the American farmer. Another case of this that I see is avocados, for instance. All the avocados in the grocery stores used to come from America. They used to come from California and Florida. The smaller ones with pebbly skin from California and the big ones with the smooth green skin from Florida. And we were doing just fine, supplying all the avocados that we needed from the farmers here in this country. And now, after NAFTA, all of them started to be imported, mostly from Mexico. And you never see a California avocado in the stores anymore. They all come from Mexico and sometimes Peru and the Dominican Republic and other Latin American countries. So to me, it just seems like this whole globalist idea has got things so screwed up. A sensible country would do its best to be self-sufficient as much as possible, and make sure that its own markets are first and foremost for its own producers, and then make foreign trade, something of the icing on the cake instead of the main body of the cake, that kind of thing, a dessert instead of the main course. But instead, we've got it all mixed up so that other countries are depending on us, I guess, for some things, and we're depending on other countries for other things, and all of them could be much more self-sufficient, which would make so much more sense to me.
This gentleman needs to go to some big company that actually does support made in the USA product, whether it's their own or whatever, like MyPillow with Mike Lindell. Maybe he would help him. Or there's a company here in the state of Missouri that I just kind of got acquainted with, Executive Wood Products, and they do a lot of work for the federal government because they make the podiums and stuff that are bulletproof, and so they've come out with whiteboards for the schools that are bulletproof, and they're on wheels like partitions. They're on wheels, and I'm going to have them on CSC Talk Radio. I've been trying to get them for a long time, and they are all everything's made in the USA. Everything's made in America. And I remember watching Shark Tank, and I quit watching Shark Tank, but Shark Tank had a young man on there, and he was from one of the southern states, and he had invented something. It goes in the back of the pickup. I can't remember what it was. And he wanted to make it in his community, like Mike Lindell with his pillows. I realized making something like that is different than making a pillow, but he wanted to keep it in his community and offer jobs for his own there. And he they just flat out told him no. They wanted it made in China. They could get the parts and some of the stuff manufactured cheaper in China, and so he turned it down. He just absolutely turned it down. So anyway, I think we give China too much credit. Are we really afraid of losing all that plastic?
No,
stuff?
we're afraid of losing them purchasing our debt is what we're afraid of.
That's probably exactly right.
So that's the bottom line.
Joe, thank you.
Well, if we didn't have such a trade deficit with China, we wouldn't need to build up so much debt.
That's true. Okay.
The other thing about this China trade, personally, I think that the only reason China has all this trade with us, they don't want to be our friendly trading partners. I think they trade with us because they want to suck as much money and as much know-how and as much productive capacity out of us to build themselves up so that they can replace the United States as the dominant country in the world. And I think that's the only reason that China trades with us.
I think you're right about that.
Well, everyone does have a tendency to forget that they're a communist nation.
Yeah.
And but anyway, alrighty, thank you for your call.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Tell the guy to get a hold
of
somebody that's got a big company that brags about made in the USA and see if they can help him figure out how to get that done economically. So, interesting indeed that we're just going to have to wait this out. You know, we don't want to. We want to know now what's going to happen, but we're just going to have to wait it out. And we know that things are getting a little bit shaky ground in the economy and shaky ground in this trade issues. Everybody's on edge about what's going to happen, and you know,
I think it is true. I mean, you have all these, you know, it's all the financial news networks and so forth. They're, you know, saying wars, and, you know, they're stirring up fear, and you know, so because they don't want these things to happen because it's going to impact their bottom line. So, you know, it's you know, when I hear of trade wars, you know, there's something behind it. It's just not as you know, who knows what it could be. I mean, there's talks coming up with North Korea. It could be a part of positioning for those discussions. You have, you know, everything that's going on with Russia, and, you know, that when they came out and made a statement, you know, about their military power and so forth, and it's very so you're not really quite sure what tune is being played for these dances that we're seeing. So, but it's better than having nothing done at all.
Well, you know, that's exactly right. Aren't we glad that they're doing and trying something? They've not tried the tariffs for a long time, so isn't it a good thing that they're doing something? Whether it works or not, or how it works, or how successful it's going to be, we don't know. But we know how successful some of these other things have been. And they just want to keep dragging them out and dragging them out and dragging them out. And like I've said before, the reason they hate Donald Trump is because he wanted to do something about trade, and he wanted to do something about the immigration problems, and they're making money off of it. Congress is the biggest threat to U.S. liberty and our economy, and they're our biggest threat to freedom. And people we keep relying on them. They're the ones making these deals. Anyway, I really believe that they are the biggest threat to us. Congress, career politicians.
Absolutely. Well, the U.S. trade gap did widen for 6 months. The U.S. trade deficit widened by more than forecast to a fresh 9-year high in February, amid broad-based demand for imports. And this was, of course, ahead of the tariffs. The gap increased 1.6% in February, compared with the median estimate of economists of 56.8. This is the data that was showed. This is the first time I'm reading this, so it was the 6th straight month with a wider deficit, the longest streak since 2000. Imports and exports both registered gains of 1.7%, with the data showing a $1 billion jump in charges for imported intellectual property that probably reflect a temporary boost from rights fees to broadcast the Olympic Games. Just everything is so involved, and everything is so complex. Let's go ahead. Overall imports advanced to $262 billion. Several categories of iron and steel imports showed gains in February. Inbound shipments also included jumps in aircraft, pharmaceutical preparations, and furniture and household goods. Let's see. The report also showed the merchandise trade gap with China, the world's second biggest economy, narrowed to $34.7 billion in February from $35.5 billion. The goods trade deficit with Mexico widened to $6.6 billion from $5.6, and the gap with Europe increased to $15.3 billion from $15 billion. The figures suggest trade may reduce the pace of economic growth in the first quarter. Let's see. Net exports subtracted 1.16% from fourth quarter gross domestic product. Let's see if there's anything else. So you see here you have a decrease with the trade gap in China, but yet you see increases of, with Europe and Mexico. And even when you hear the reports of the the trade gap widens, it's all focused on China.
Mm.
So, it's so it's just interesting to see how. And trust me, I'm not a fan of China, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not. But it's when you try to get to the truth, you kind of have to weed through everything to see what it is, and so we'll see if more
information. They're the big players. They're the big players on the board. Yeah. They're the ones we have to kind of deal with.
Second largest economy.
Yeah. And they do want to be number one.
Absolutely.
They want to be number one economically, and they want to be number one militarily.
Militarily, absolutely.
And so there's always been a war in that respect. It's competition. However you want to look at it. They look at these trade wars like that's something terrible, but I remember gas wars where, one gas station on one end of town would cut its price just to get a few people to come over there instead of over to the other guy, or they'd give away the little blow-up dinosaurs. They was always – remember the blow-up dinosaurs, the little Sinclair dinosaurs?
Sinclair. My grandfather had a Sinclair gas station.
I got a dinosaur once. I got a blow-up dinosaur. I don't remember how, but anyway, I did. But I have another article here that it's not about trade, it's about jobs here, and you've probably seen this. It says new applications for U.S. unemployment benefits increased more than expected last week, but the number of Americans on jobless rolls fell to its lowest level since 1973, pointing to tightening labor market conditions. Well, I know how it is here, and while some jobs are coming back, some of it is very slow. My husband's in construction, and he's still laid off. The company's having trouble getting the bids and getting the jobs, and it's cutthroat. There's some that are they're willing to take a loss on the job just to have the job, and his company's not willing to do that. So, because then you're just going to get yourself out of business. But it says economists polled by Reuters had forecast claims rising to 225,000 in the latest week, and last week's increase likely reflected difficulties adjusting to the data around moving holidays like Easter and school spring breaks and all this and that. The labor market is considered to be near or at full employment. The jobless rate is at a 17-year low of 4.1%. Not too far from the Federal Reserve's forecast of 3.8% by the end of this year. Well, you and I know those numbers are not totally accurate. I think there have been some jobs come back, but it has not been quite what they're showing it to be because they fudge on those numbers. If you're no longer, because just like they said, the unemployment benefits have increased. Well, how can that be? If the jobs, everybody's full, if the jobs are all full, how can that be? And anyway, it's just a report, that it's claiming that we're at our lowest level of unemployment since 1973. Yeah.
Well, you can go back, and I don't know how many years that we've had this lowest employment, and every time they come out with those numbers, the lowest number since 1970. Well, it's been years we've been like that, but they make it sound like it's a brand new thing, But, I agree with you. You have companies out there. It's so cutthroat out there, and this is one reason why families are having a hard time getting ahead. So, and it's another sign that things don't trickle down. It doesn't come down to the worker. Never has, never will. And, people have to get used to that. All the promises are made, but all the legislation that's usually passed it's not for the worker, it's not for the citizens. It's for those who pass the legislation. It's for the elite. It's for the wealthy. And, we're just the little worker bees. And, but that's one reason it's so competitive.
I wanted to be the queen bee. I wanted to be the queen bee. I didn't want to be a worker bee.
Here we are.
I know.
Here we are.
We are.
So, and I guess to some degree, that's just the way it is. But all the promises that, our wages are going to improve and, we're going to be living the life of Riley anymore, it's just not true. And even though, yes, the economy has gotten better. Yes, we have people that are, But there's such a distortion in how things are reported into the truth of the matter. Just like you said, your husband, they're still laid off. But yet they tell us that our economy is just screaming and everything is great, and well, you know what? Things aren't great.
No.
It is
They're not.
No, and all the advancements that we've seen it's been done by debt. And it's nothing new. They've been creating these debt programs for how long? Every time we went into and I say this dozens of times, every time we've gone into a recession, they create various debt programs to create the illusion that things are better, people are working. But, we've seen our economy, our jobs change from, industrial to production to service.
Well, let me make an observation here on this particular, and maybe I'm wrong, so you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I would never do that.
I want you to. The number of people that are unemployed is based on those who are getting benefits, correct? So if you've already been unemployed long enough that you're no longer getting benefits,
you can drop off.
And you drop off of that list, but that doesn't mean you're employed.
Correct.
So have we lost more people that the amount has increased of those who are receiving benefits? Because that number increased, yet they say the jobless rolls fell. So that doesn't match up unless it's because those who were getting benefits are no longer getting it because they've passed their time. You can only get it for so long a time. And new people have lost their jobs, so they have applied for benefits. That's the only way I can look at it. Because it doesn't make sense any other way.
No, it doesn't. And you also have these states that are so strapped. Many of them have gone in there and shortened the amount of time for the unemployment for the benefits. So yeah, there's a lot of distortions and the way the media promotes these various reports and so forth. Of course, they don't. They just want to make it sound good and rosy, so people are confident, so they go out and spend. 70% of our economy is consumption, so you better get those people out there spending no matter what. And, people say these quarter-point raises, interest rate increases by the Fed is no big deal. Well, you know what? Eventually it does become a big deal because it does affect households. 1 minute they're paying, and they are in debt. They do use their credit cards for to survive, for medical, for food. For people don't have any savings in this country. Even your other countries, even China has a better savings rate than we do. A lot of these countries, even Japan. They're putting trillions of dollars into stimulus and to get their economy going, and eventually they're going to have a debt bill that they can't repay, but their people have savings. We don't have $1,000 saved in case of an emergency for the majority of the people in this country.
Or 500.
Or 500.
Well, so what is I'm going to change the subject, but we're still talking about debt. Because this is seems to be how people roll or organizations roll. But the DNC, the Democrat National Committee, they are in debt. So do they have a credit card that they're running up all the debt, or are they just not paying their bills? It says the DNC originally reported a $6.1 million in debt back in March, and now it's $6.3 million in debt. So it's going up. That was March, and it's just now April. So it's going up. DNC Chair Tom Perez has struggled to keep up with the Republican counterpart. They have no debt right now. The Republicans have absolutely no debt right now. The RNC Chair, Ronna McDaniel, the RNC doubled the DNC's fundraising in 2017 and has continued running well ahead of the DNC. Well, I think that a lot of that has to do with the president is raising money, and Obama was good at raising money, so the DNC always had plenty of money when they had President Barack Obama. I guess he's not raising money for him right now, and Hillary's sure not helping him. She's not helping their cause any. But I'm just thinking, what do they do? I mean, here's another debt. Now, it's the DNC debt, but is that any different than individual debts or corporate debt or whatever we're talking about here with our economy? Here, they think nothing about being $6.3 million in debt. It's just a drop in the bucket. Well,
I'll tell you what, they're not going to have a successful election come November if they're in debt and they don't have the money to promote their candidates against the Republicans. So that really is to me, that's kind of a good sign. That means they're not going to, replace the Republicans as quickly as everybody thought, because there's no money there. So they're either going to have to start divvying up some donations in order to cover some of their debt. But when you consider billions of dollars are used through these campaigns, $6.1 million might be just pocket change for them.
And I'm assuming that's what this debt is, the campaigns they just went through.
Yeah.
So they've apparently not paid their bills, so nobody's going to give them any more credit, are they? Are they going to be that loyal to the DNC? They're going to keep giving them credit?
Maybe. How did they get to 6.1 in debt anyway?
6.3 now. It was 6.1, now it's 6.3. It's like,
so that's a good sign for the Republican Party, I guess.
I guess it is. I don't know. I'm just as mad at them as I am anybody.
Well, yeah, I know, but hey, we have Tom calling from Michigan. Good morning, Tom.
Tom.
Good morning.
How are you, Tom?
Yeah, and I was going to talk about the tariffs. I kind of look at it like, the tariff is a lawful way for the government to make revenue, and that was, that was all discussed and debated and speculated on at when they wrote the Constitution and in the debates and the conventions, and it was determined that a nation wasn't prosperous by directly taxing its people. That should only be for emergencies.
Okay, we're gonna have to cut you because we're going into a break. So you hang on, and we'll let you finish that when we come back from this break. You're listening to Power Talks. The number to call is 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. And Melody and Beth Ann. Tom, we'll be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. we're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
Tom, because we had to cut him off because of the commercial break. Tom, go ahead.
Okay. Tariffs being a lawful form of revenue for the government, there is a side effect of, not allowing our country to be flooded by cheap foreign imports. And the other side of the coin is this individual income tax. It's not constitutional. It's not a lawful way for the government to raise revenue, and it's simply put the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in 1916 said that the 16th Amendment did not create any new taxing powers. It was basically the whole 16th Amendment was about the Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust case, that where the stockholder claimed as an owner of the company that when the corporation paid the corporate income tax, that was a direct tax on him as a shareholder because they paid the tax before he got his dividend. And what happened was the whole Tax Act in that year, 1895, was overturned. Later on in 1911, before the 16th Amendment, there was Clara Flint in Flint versus Stone Tracy tried to do the same thing and was not able to because the Congress wrote the tax as an excise on corporate activity, business activity, and a corporation being a creation of the state, they were allowed to tax that as an excise. And I mean, it's the ignorance of the people in this country where, the juries, I don't know if it's me too or where, I have to pay this tax and file these returns, so I think everybody should, or it's just people have been gaslighted for so long. One of the main points in the constitutional debates was that a country is not prosperous by directly taxing the people. There's a fair tax now that's the sales tax, the proposed sales tax where they could make the same amount of revenue, but they want to completely do away with the corporate income tax, which I don't think is a good idea. If we had fair tariffs, calculated for the maximum amount of revenue, not to protect, but just to produce revenue, we would be competitive. I'm losing myself. I just completely lost my thread.
That's okay.
Anyways, the income tax. Okay, let me get back to my speech. Income tax is illegal, and tariffs are legal. Now, why can't the government just follow the law? And because it's easy money. And that's the only thing I can figure. You got this huge bunch of people out here. Everybody has to work, to make a living in order to buy the things we need to live. And that's where the money is. And like Dillinger said, that's why he robs banks, because that's where the money is. And I don't think it's, and now add to that, now that we're a service economy, now, people who want cheap goods, they're going to be all for these, because they have a job, they're in the service industry, and they're, it's good times, and their paycheck goes further. They wouldn't be able to afford these things if they were, if they had to pay their neighbor, a living wage, and, as far as in manufacturing, things of that nature. And, we've been on this course of this income tax for so long. It's little by I think it probably, probably everybody in your audience knows that when they started this income tax in 1913, that it was more of a luxury tax, a small percentage on the super wealthy, and luxury taxes. The Supreme Court has said that luxury taxes are lawful excises. The part I would have a problem with is the assessment of the luxury tax. I believe that the self-assessment in itself proves that it's a direct tax by the common law, and I don't see any other explanation. But the luxury taxes are lawful excises, and little by little we've gotten this. When in 1916, as Chief Justice White, when he said that in Stanton versus Baltic Mining, that the 16th Amendment didn't create any new taxing powers, he was on the Supreme Court in 1895 in the Pollock decision, and all the way through to 1916. So he was there on the Supreme Court when they passed the 16th Amendment. So I would think that him and the other members of that court, being there in that day watching it, knew what it meant. And, these law professors that come along now and they say the 16th Amendment allows the federal government to tax the individual incomes, wages, dividends, interest. It's total hogwash.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you short because we got another caller and we're running out of time. We're running out of show.
Thanks for taking my call.
For your call and your input. We have Neil from Missouri. Neil, how are you today?
Hey, doing all right. Just real quick, the 16th Amendment has nothing to do with the income tax. Supreme Court's ruled at least half a dozen times on that. You try to plead the 16th Amendment when you go to defend yourself in a tax court or in the U.S. district courts, you're going to lose. 16th Amendment's got nothing to do with the income tax. The income tax relies on one thing only, use of the Federal Reserve note. You use the note, you're operating as an agent of a foreign corporation, you're subject to the tax under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. The tax code, Title 26, is simply how the Foreign Agents Registration Act is being implemented. But the foundation for their authority comes from the Foreign Agents Registration Act. If you voluntarily use the note, you're obligated to pay any tax on it that's subject to it, and anything you acquire using the note becomes property of the Federal Reserve. That's why the IRS can come grab your house, grab your car, whatever they want, if you don't have receipts showing that you paid at law in coin for your property instead of paying for it with a Federal Reserve note. So, pretty simple. If I was a federal prosecutor, I guarantee you nobody ever get by, get over on my watch, because the only people that ever won on those tax cases, like pleading the 16th Amendment, convinced the jury that they didn't know what they were doing. See, because the charge is willful failure to file, which means they have to prove intent. Now, if you were misled by these people like Irwin Schiff and the rest that are, fighting these different arguments, fallacious arguments on the 16th Amendment and what have you, no, it only applies to the Federal Reserve note. But the prosecutors, I don't think most of the prosecutors even know that. They don't even know what what the foundation of the authority of the IRS is. But that's what it is. So if you don't want to pay the tax, get your receipts paid in, says paid in coin for whatever you buy. The property's yours. They can't tax you on your income if you cash your checks in coin instead of in Federal Reserve notes. Or if you stick with money orders and checks, those are denominated in dollars. They're not denominated in Federal Reserve notes. And you can legally avoid paying the taxes. Simply don't volunteer to be an agent of a foreign corporation, the Federal Reserve.
All right. You have told us we need to get it done, but we have to get started. Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it. We have to get started with that coin, don't we, Melody? So how many people have coin?
Absolutely, and we've been running specials on our 90% silver coinage that are dated pre-1964. The 90% silver, we have mixtures of dimes and quarter bags, $25 face value. They're pretty cheap at $330. If you buy more than two, then we'll go ahead and give you free shipping. So they can give us a call at 1-800-375-4188. That's 1-800-375-4188. The 90% silver now is pretty much the most cost-effective silver that you can be buying, coinage today. Silver Eagle premiums can be a little high. They're different. Of course, we all know the Silver Eagle has a 1 ounce per coin per silver dollar. So they're going to cost you, $19 and, 50 cents, somewhere around that area, depending on silver today. And silver is up 7 cents today at almost $16.50. So a little pressure on gold. The markets are positive today. So 800-375-4188.
That's 1-800-375-4188. We are out of time for today. Great discussions. Maybe encouraging news with this Bill 5404. I kind of looked it up so I can see a little bit about what it says. Thank you, Melody, for all the information you brought today. Appreciate it so much. And we will see you tomorrow, which is Friday. Thank you, Melody. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188.